Yeah, it's a nice chair. Okay, all right. Excuse me. All right, we are set here. Good. 30 seconds. Got that good. All right, you ready? Oh, and then the other thing too is one other thing I was going to say was, so I start off by looking at the camera a little bit, and if you want to, that's fine too. But then when we talk, we just talk regularly.
Okay.
Just FYI. And you look a little nervous. So just relax. Just relax. Okay. There you go. Just relax. It's hard to be nervous when you're laughing. All right, here we go. Hey guys, Brian Hilliard here, author of the best-selling book, Networking Like a Pro, and we are joined today by Amanda Baxley from Pratt, Dedman & Associates, and I'm really excited. Amanda and I have been talking for a little while, and we're real excited to kind of get this thing going and have a really good conversation here today about building your practice. So, Amanda, thanks for coming out for us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, first of all, let's tell some of the folks a little bit about what it is that you guys do exactly over there. Tell us a little bit about the area of practice that you're in.
Okay, I've been practicing for about 6 years.
Okay.
And the two partners of the firm, Bill Pratt and Heath Dedman, have been practicing Bill's been practicing for about 25 years, Heath for probably about 12, so combined we have about 30 years of experience.
Okay.
We specialize only in estate planning, probate, and guardianship.
Okay.
And to break that down a little bit,
Yeah.
Estate planning is basically we assist individuals and families with preparation of wills, trusts, powers of attorney.
Okay.
That can run the gamut from any kind of estate plan, from $50 all the way up to $5 million.
Right.
We primarily wrap the plan around what they need.
Okay.
So it's not, you come in and pay $5,000 for a package. It's if you need a trust, you'll get a trust. We shape the plan around what you need, your financial goals, the legacy you want to leave.
Right.
The probate side, we do, that's estate administration.
Okay.
So we represent the executor or the administrator.
Okay.
If someone in the family has passed away,
Okay.
somebody's been nominated in that capacity.
Right.
We help them kind of get the assets where they need to go.
Right.
We flow it through the court system. We do
Right.
as much or as little as they want us to do.
Right.
And then the guardianship piece basically is for someone who's elderly
Right.
or a disabled juvenile.
Okay.
If they need a guardian
Okay.
and they did not have a power of attorney in place,
Right.
we assist them with going through the hearing process and setting them up as the guardian for that individual.
And that power of attorney, I know we talked about earlier. We will get back to that in a
Yes.
second. But that is some good stuff. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, and we alluded to this before, you go out and you do a lot of networking. We talked about that off camera, and you're kind of out and about in the marketplace. How do you get that message out? Because, a lot of the people who are listening, it's not just like you just do personal injury.
Right.
Or, family law. You have a pretty, I won't say diverse in the sense of, out there, but it's not just one thing, is the point I'm trying to make. How do you go ahead and give us some thoughts on how you market that? Like when people ask you what you do, how do you handle that?
Well, one thing I do is I am involved in several networking groups,
Okay.
and I find that helps me be more cohesive about what I do, and it puts me in touch with people of similar practices and like minds.
Right.
And so getting the word out that way, if I can just do, I like to call it an elevator speech.
We're listening.
Where I just say, I break it down into layman's terms that I specialize or I help individuals and families with wills, trust, and powers of attorney. If you say estate planning,
Right.
people sometimes are like, what is that?
Well, they think
is that real estate? Is that
you hear estate planning, you think of, you remember The Simpsons, right? You think
Yes.
of like Mr. Burns and like this right, this big,
and it's
deal.
some convoluted thing
Right,
that nobody
right.
can understand. But
Right.
honestly, all it is making sure that your assets get where you want them to go
Right.
at your death.
Right.
And
Right.
that's of the utmost importance. A lot of people think that, oh, I don't have anything, therefore I don't need a will,
Right.
or I don't need to do this until I'm 75. And that's just not the case.
Right.
Another part of my mission and the way I like to network as well is by doing presentations.
Okay, talk about that.
I find
Okay.
that getting the word out
Yeah.
about what I do
Yeah.
is of utmost importance.
Right.
Educating the public
Right.
about what is estate planning,
Right.
what does that involve.
Right.
Sometimes when I do a presentation, I'll ask just a show of hands, who
Right.
has a checking account,
Right.
who has some life insurance.
Right.
Okay, you have an estate. You just don't think of it that way,
Right.
but you've got an estate.
Right.
And what's going to happen to that?
Right.
You know, do you want Uncle Joe, who nobody in the family likes, to
Right.
get your stuff?
Right.
Well, that very likely can happen if you don't have a will in place. And that's kind of what my mission is to go out and educate people about not only is it important to have a will in place,
Right,
but
right.
to do it when you're competent and
Right.
you know what you want to do, not doing it because you're now forced into a situation
Right.
where you have to do that.
I love that point about presentations. I do a lot of presentations. That's how we met. I do a lot of presentations, and I think, you know, for whatever reason, lawyers, the interesting thing is, it's not like they're inarticulate. It's not like they can't, right? It's not
Right,
like
right.
okay. So what happens is, I don't know, a lot of lawyers don't seem to do that as much as they should. I love the fact that you're going out and doing that. Give us some ideas on what it is. So you're educating them?
I'm educating
Walk
them.
us through a little bit about that.
Kind of basically telling them what is estate planning.
Okay.
What is that scary term all about?
Okay. And we're talking about, I'm sorry to interrupt you, we're also talking about like a little 20-minute pretation, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
I don't want to get any calls saying, oh, well, right?
Right, no.
Amanda's doing these half days. No.
No,
Go ahead.
yes. I mean, I've even done some for shorter than 20 minutes.
Okay,
But yeah,
okay.
it would be 20 to 30 minutes.
Right.
And not only do we talk about that, but I also give them some tips about ways they can think about what they want to do. One of the biggest things that I find in doing this, as long as I've done it,
Yeah.
is that beneficiary designations on life insurance and IRAs
Right.
and 401ks
Right.
are crucial.
Okay.
And people, one, don't understand that
Right.
for whatever reason, or
Right.
two, don't have the proper people listed. So
Okay.
if you have no one, it's going to go through your estate.
Right.
That's bad.
Right.
Because you've got taxes,
Right.
income tax implications,
Right,
and you
right.
could have filing fees
Right.
that you wouldn't normally have to pay.
Right.
So we talk a little bit about that,
Okay.
and then, like I said, I try to give them some tips on what they can do, some
Okay.
things they need to think about to
Right.
be proactive.
Right.
One area of importance that I like to stress as well is children with families with small children.
Yeah, right, okay.
If you have a minor, your minor can't get, and if you were to die today and you had $300,000 worth of life insurance,
Mhm.
your minor can't get $300,000.
And we're talking under 18.
Correct.
Okay.
In the state of North Carolina,
Right,
you're considered.
right.
So if that happens, then now we're in a whole different ball of wax.
Right.
We've got, now you're gonna have to go to court.
Right.
You're gonna have to pay a lawyer $3,000 to appoint a guardian.
Right.
And this person will have to be in place until they're 18.
Right.
That could be 2 years, that could be 10 years.
Right.
So that's another big piece of it. Is
Right.
if you've got young children, you need to figure out how they're going to be protected so that it doesn't cause your family members more harm.
Right.
You also want to think about trusts.
Right.
Do you want to give them $300,000 at 18? Do you want to stretch that out? What does that look like?
I'll take $300,000 at 18. I don't know if that would work or not, but I'll
Some
take it.
kids are great with that. Other kids are not so much.
I don't think I would have done well with $300,000 at 18. But yeah.
And
yeah.
the presentations I've done them, you would be surprised. Estate planning touches all areas, all walks of life.
Right.
For instance, realtors.
Okay.
You may have a house that needs to be sold through an estate.
Right.
Okay, how does that work?
Right.
We've never had to do that. A power of attorney would
Right.
help with that.
Right.
Because then the person could sign off. But if we don't have that, what are we going to do? I've done presentations to daycares,
Okay.
assisted living facilities.
Okay. Really? This is a great conversation. How do you go about finding some of those? So what do you probably people you know, I'm thinking.
People that we know, I like to work by referral.
Yeah.
I network, like I said, but referrals I find are the best
Okay.
sources of clients for me, because if I'm getting somebody from a referral,
Right.
then they've already done the marketing for me.
That's exactly right.
They've already said how great I am,
Right.
how knowledgeable I am.
Right.
You know, if you come to our firm, you're going to get an expert
Right.
who knows what they're doing.
Right.
So I don't really have to sell myself.
Right.
I can just show them, and they can pass that. They can pay it forward, as I like to say.
Right.
But the assisted livings and some of the nursing homes have been through referral sources,
Right.
such as CPAs,
Mhm.
financial advisors, and then from clients.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a lot of people that will come to us and say, my mom's getting ready to have to enter this phase of her life. help me through that.
Right.
Do you have any sources you can put me in touch with? A great source is a place for mom.
Right.
We've used them quite a bit, and they're an excellent resource for, okay, if you're going to an assisted living facility, these are the top 10 things you need to look out for.
Right.
But I have found that for assisted living,
Right.
a lot of clients are now moving from other states to North Carolina.
Right.
It's one of the best places to live, so I've been told.
Well, hold on. Atlanta's not bad. But all right, we don't have time for that right now. Go ahead.
So they're needing to have, if they have documents, they're needing to have those documents updated.
Right.
And so that's a great source for me.
Right.
Divorce attorneys
Right.
are another good referral source,
Okay.
because unfortunately, if you're going through that stage of your life,
Right.
then you need to have your documents separated.
Right.
Your spouse needs to come out.
Right.
Things are probably going to change with your kids.
Right.
So back to the presentations, I've done presentations for even other attorneys.
Okay.
But financial advisors, I've also done presentations for financial advisors.
Right.
And I think that helps their clients too, because
That's awesome.
then they can put everything into perspective. It's
Right.
not just my money over here
Right.
and my documents over here.
Right.
It's kind of a full circle type
Right.
of thing.
That's awesome. Now let's talk networking. So you go out. How many times do you network? Just to throw out a number. How many times do you think you network during either a week or a month? Just give us a feel.
Oh, probably 5 to 6 times a week.
Okay.
I'm in a BNI group.
Oh, I don't think I knew that. Do you mind telling me which one?
No, vis-a-vis.
What days is
They
that?
meet Thursdays at Hope Community Church from 7:30 in the morning to 9.
I've spoken at some of those, but I don't think Okay, go ahead.
A lot. It's really early. I'm not a morning person, but
Right.
so that's a challenge.
Well, and we should tell people, BNI, Business Network International, that is a referral group where you pass business amongst like-minded professionals.
Yes,
Go ahead.
correct.
Go ahead.
I'm also in another group called She's Connected.
Okay.
It's very similar to BNI, but
Okay.
it's only females.
Okay.
And it's a lot less formal.
Right.
And then I try to have one-on-ones or lunches with other referral sources at least a couple of times a week.
Right.
And that's what I like to do to stay in front of the people that I need to be in front of.
One of the points I make, and specifically for lawyers and stuff, I make it a general point, but specifically for lawyers, is, you really need to be spent, in my opinion, in terms of how much time you need to be spent marketing. I think it's got to be 40, 50, 60% of your week or month, however you want to look at it. I personally look at it a week. Where, let's just say for sake of discussion, you work 50 hours a week or whatever the case may be. What happens is you're able to go out there and maybe spend 20, 30 hours. You say, well, what does that look like, Brian? Well, it's networking. I love the presentations. It's the one-to-ones, which you just kind of touched on. Those, I call them in our book, we call it coffee connections, which is fine. It's just the idea that you've met someone while networking and now you're following up and engaging in a deepening relationship with these folks. You know what I mean? And when you're doing those types of things, you put yourself in a situation where good things can happen.
Right, and I've been finding that it's really paying off.
Yeah.
Because a coffee connection or a one-on-one is a way for somebody to really trust you and get to know you. Because you can't just meet somebody, at a lunch or a networking event and never see them again and expect them they're going to remember you, because they're getting 500 other business cards along with yours.
Right.
So it's a way for me to really get in front of them and say, look, this is what I'm about.
Right.
This is what you'll get if you work with me or your clients work with me.
Right.
And also, my big thing is paying it forward, making sure I ask them, how can I help you?
Right.
What can I do for you? How can I help you grow your business?
Right.
What are some people that I can be on the lookout for? What are some keyword indicators that if somebody says that to me, I can say, I've got a great person for you, and that's who you need to work with.
And what a great point, Amanda, because a lot of times I find people do the opposite, and I know you have seen that too. They do that. You know what I call it? I call it drive-by. Hold on, I haven't said the joke yet. I call it drive-by networking, right? Where they just, right? You go to some of these after hours, and I'm not picking on anything, but you go to these things, and they're like, they can't get the thing out fast enough, and they're like, and then they come back, and my phone rings, right? Oh, well, Brian, this networking thing doesn't work.
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. You've written this book, you've been doing this for a while, you've taught people, but for me, as a lawyer, it doesn't work for me. Oh, right, my bad. What was I thinking? But people miss that point. I actually call it meeting people where they're at. Okay, the idea is that, okay, so let's say you and I just met, right? We're sitting down, we're having a conversation, and my objective during this one-to-one is to first of all understand your business, to figure out, how we might be able to work together in a sense of, passing business to each other. And then what is it I can do to move you forward? You know what I mean? And when you meet people where you're at, then what happens is they are much more likely to then reciprocate that to you. And I know you've seen that before.
Yes, absolutely. And it's so true.
Yeah, it totally is.
B&I calls it giver's gain.
Right.
And it's
right.
so opposite of what our society is told.
Oh my gosh, we'll be here for an hour if we start talking about our society. But
it's normally, no, it's all about me.
Yep.
But it's so true.
Yep.
The more you think about, and then I have found that it constantly puts me in the mindset of
right.
when I'm at a table with somebody and I know them, but we're now actually having a face-to-face.
Right.
I'm already thinking about, oh, you need to meet such and such.
That's
or
exactly right.
We need to meet such and such.
Right.
And it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah.
It spirals out. And back to your point, I think you made an excellent point about, the drive-by networking. And somebody will call you and say, this doesn't work for me.
Right.
And what I have found is you have to work it to make it work.
Right.
And that's why it's called networking. It's not net sitting.
Right.
It's not net eating.
Right.
It's networking.
Right.
So I've enjoyed it. It's been a challenge for me.
Okay.
I think as a lawyer, we don't necessarily, I don't want to say don't like to network. It's just not. We're not trained.
You know what I think? Because I've thought about this. You know what I think it is? I think it's just not in your culture.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's what because I've spent some time thinking about this. I'm like, what exactly is the problem? I think it's not in the culture. I think the culture is that we're paid for our time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the culture is, which is fine. I think the culture is we're paid for our time. I think the culture is we're not doing anything for free. I think the culture is I'm going to go and I'm going to be, like you said, there's kind of this self-directedness. And this is not just, I'm not making fun of law, this is just in general.
Right.
And then what happens is ultimately you get to a place where you talk about networking and giver's gain. And what?
Yeah, I don't have time for that.
And that's usually the result. All right, let me ask you one more question before we wrap up. Talk to us a little bit about, so you're out networking, so it could be a marketing question. You're out there networking, you're meeting all these people. How do you keep track? I have an answer to this, but how do you keep track of all the cards and the names and the this and the that? Give us some thoughts on what it is that you do to keep track of these people that you meet.
What I like to do is I have set up a series of notebooks where I have.
Oh, you're going old school. Okay, I like this. This is good.
I have some electronics in here where I keep the cards of the core people that I've broken it down. I call it spheres of influence.
Right.
So the people that would be spheres of influence for me and myself for them.
Okay.
I've kind of categorized that.
Okay.
And then I've made myself kind of like a tickler system.
Okay.
Where I try to follow up with them maybe once or twice a month.
Okay.
And then I have kept, I'm trying to get better at this, but I've started a spreadsheet where I kind of break down who are my best referral sources or who are the people that I want to continue to have those one-on-ones with and build deeper relationships with.
That's exactly right.
And that's been a challenge because, as you said, a lot of the drive-by is you meet all these people, but realistically you can't stay in touch with 500 people.
Correct.
So I've tried to call out of those 500 people, okay, I want a core of 3 divorce attorneys.
Right.
I want 3 real estate attorneys.
That's exactly
I want
right.
3 financial advisors, and really cultivate and deepen relationships with those individuals. And then, yes, that constantly changes as I meet people because your spheres of influence and the people you network with, will constantly change. You'll find that these people would be better sources for you than some other people. So that has been an interesting challenge, but I find that the more I do it, the easier it gets.
Well, the other thing too is that when you're organized, what you kind of alluded to is a strategy. right? Because what you said was, I've got 3 of these, 3 of these, and 3 of these. Okay, these financial advisors, family law, and realtors. And what that does is that's kind of Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He has this conversation about begin with the end in mind. I think that's habit number 2 or 3. But the idea is that what you just said, I'm looking to get to this area here, right? And I know, and I'm here. So I'm trying to get here, and I'm whatever. And here are the 3 sets of 3 people who can help me, get there. So that when you go out networking, we're back to that. It's not. I think a lot of people treat networking like, when we were kids, you would go and you go to the beach. I don't know where you grew up. I grew up in Connecticut, so we would go to the beach, right, on the East Coast.
Yep. And
it was just like, or even we'd go to Action Park in New Jersey, and it was just like, and right? I mean, you remember that. You just jump in the water. And I think a lot of people treat networking like that. They open the door, they pay their $5, and they sign up at the register, like little kids, and they just jump in the water. And I think that a lot of times, we kind of made fun of it with that drive, by networking, but you're not doing that. That's not what I'm hearing. You know who you want to meet, or at least you have an idea as to what you're trying to accomplish. That's a better way to put it. You have an idea as to what you're trying to accomplish, and then from there, turning that into real-time results.
Because like you said, going to an amusement park and just letting loose, it's like people get overwhelmed by that.
Right.
And so that's why they're like, this networking stuff is not for me.
Right.
I'll just sit in my office and wait for the phone to ring.
Right.
And it's like, that's never going to happen.
Right.
But if you have a strategy behind it, because it is overwhelming at first.
It can be.
Yeah.
It can be.
But once you got the strategy in place,
you're in good shape. Awesome. All right, last question. I know I said that was the last one. This is the last one. All right. So what I always like to ask people is, you've been doing this for a little while now, okay? What would you, if you could kind of time warp back, okay? What would you tell yourself, that what have you learned today over the last X number of years, that if you could go back and tell yourself, hey, listen, here's something you're going to want to watch out for. If you could go back to the beginning, okay, when you were kind of getting started, what would you go back and tell yourself, so maybe that they could take some takeaways from that?
I think 2 things that I have that I wish I could do over is, one, I wish I had gotten out there a lot sooner.
Yeah.
And I had started the networking.
Yeah.
I came from an environment where I was more in a structured salary type setting. And so I thought, I can just kick back and relax. I don't need to meet anyone. The work's going to come to me. But in hindsight, I wish I had gotten myself out there more. People could have known me. I could have had a whole bunch of referral sources, as compared to where I am now, which it's growing. But that's one thing. The other thing is the people that I've met along the way, especially a lot of the referral sources I've met, I wish I had done a better job of staying in touch with those people.
We talked about that for me too,
And I have done that now, but the people that I would have liked to have stayed in touch with, who knows where they are. Because I know for me, and I guess here's a third thing, even though I said 2 things. I think or for me, being a lawyer, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to meet with this person, and they're going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're going to go out there, and they're going to be my marketing team, and I don't have to do anything else. I just need to meet 50 good people, and they're going to do my marketing, and that's not. That goes back to what I said earlier. You have to work it. And it's not working it for yourself, it's just working it for the common good and helping everybody else out, because they're probably thinking the same thing. Oh, Amanda said she's going to be my referral partner, so she's going to send me business. I don't need to follow up with her but once a year. But consistently staying in front of someone and consistently having them on the front of your mind and keeping them in your thoughts, not only one makes them feel like, okay, she's really looking out for my best interest. But, it's continuing that deepening relationship. She not only cares about what I can offer her, but she cares about me. And I only want to work with people that I care about, that I like, and that I trust.
It's interesting. One of the points I talk a lot about during my presentations is the idea that we live in a society that has so many different ways to communicate. We were talking about that off camera, with the idea that, cell phones, and you've got your, before that, the pagers, and you've got the email now, and the text, and all that other stuff. That for a society that has so many different ways to contact and stay connected with people, that we feel more fragmented. If you talk to people, people feel more isolated than they do 10, 15, 20 years ago.
That's true.
They just feel disconnected. You know what I mean? And your point was an excellent one, which is what I heard, which is you're meeting people and you're telling them that you care, and you're showing them that they matter, and you're making them relevant, okay? And a lot of times, you know, you take a look at even just marketing in general, you know what I mean? And if you look at television now, a lot of people don't think about this. If you look at commercials now versus, say, definitely 30 years ago, but let's just say even 15, what you'll notice is a few things. You'll see today a lot less CEOs on television.
Yeah.
Okay? And I won't put you on the spot, but there is one. Maybe you can think about it. You see a lot less CEOs. You see a lot less CEOs. And you know what you see more of today? You see the Geico Gecko. You see the Flow for the Progressive. You see the cows for the Chick-fil-A. You see, I can't think of any more, but you see, you know, different icons, you know, mascots almost of this, because people, you know, we know what the problem is. 30 years ago, you talked about do what you said you're going to do. 30 years ago, if you said you were going to do something, you did it.
Right.
You know, Kennedy said we were going to the moon in 61 or whatever.
And we did.
And by God, 8-9 years later, we did. You know what I mean? Okay, just if that had happened today, and I'm not making a political reference, but I'm just saying that, you know, we trust people less than we did, I think, 15 years ago, but definitely 30. Okay? And as a result of that, back to the marketing of your practice, you really need to show people that you care. You know what I mean? And just real quick, some of the things that I like to do, just to kind of throw them out there, in no particular order, I like to be able to stay in touch with people via social media, like LinkedIn and things like that. I like to be able to do what you're doing, obviously presentations. You know what I like to do? I like to invite people to networking events that I'm going to.
That's a good idea.
I do that a lot. In terms of, excuse me, that's not true. I don't invite them for networking. I invite people to presentations that I do.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff, you know, some of the stuff is free. Some of it you're gonna have to pay for because the mortgage is gonna pay for itself. All right. but you know, if it's just a deal where I'm gonna be out and about, I'll shoot out an email. I'll send out a message on LinkedIn. So the other thing that you can be thinking about, just as a value add, I guess, for you, is, you know, I would also, you know, you're talking about, I think you mentioned on camera that you're doing a spreadsheet, right? You said that to me. Okay,
that's
yeah,
right,
yeah. And what I would be doing is not only would I be keeping track of the people, what I met. Now I get a little obsessive. Not only would I be keeping track of the people, who they are, name, business, and maybe where I met them, I would be keeping track of them, the when. Because let's just think about this for a second. So then a month or two later, let's just say you can have people that you met 2 months ago,
right,
and invite that group out to a similar networking event. Right?
That's a good point.
So you're able to cycle through that. Okay, maybe you even keep it on different tabs. May, you know, March, April, May, June, and you can just go back to a whole tab. That's a thought too. You know what I mean? But yeah, I like to do, when I say presentations, invite them out to networking, keep a track with them on social media, like LinkedIn is what I like to do. And then another thing that I did here that I like to do as well is, and this is a little bit of money, so this is different. I like to throw a client appreciation event every once in a while.
That's an excellent idea.
You don't have to go crazy with that. You invite them over to the office, you spend a few $100, maybe not even that much. I mean, you spend depending on how many people we're talking, $300 to $500. Okay, I'll tell you what I did. This just depends. What I did is I get a little light hors d'oeuvres, just some light hors d'oeuvres, and I did one. I've done them in different cities. In Atlanta, we actually had a woman who did wine tasting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens? And you've seen these people before, where they have like a wine tasting deal,
right? And
you know, for like $100 or whatever, they'll bring the wine. They'll bring like a case of wine, 6. They'll bring some wine. They'll bring some crackers. They'll bring some cheese, and you give them a check. And when we did that, I did this with a friend of mine. This is a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We split it. So maybe you split it with a financial advisor, just throwing out some ideas. And then what happens is that you guys all bring your own people in. You say a few words during the thing. People love that.
Yeah, that is a great idea.
You know, and you're making calls. Hey, I'm not trying to I'm just saying if you want to come. to our deal. And bring a spouse, bring your friend, bring your husband. I don't know.
And I think part of that is you're making them feel special again, like you care about them.
That's my point.
And for what we do, I mean, you're sitting down talking about intimate topics that nobody wants to talk about.
Right. Death.
Exactly.
Disease.
Death and dying,
Stuff.
So you want to I want those CPAs and those financial advisors to say, Amanda is the person you need to see.
Right.
Because not only is she going to take care of you on the legal side,
right.
she's going to take care of you on the personal side.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So those are types of things that I do, but it's a function of staying organized with your names.
Right.
Okay? Because if it's just stacks, and I'm not saying you're doing this or anybody is, but actually some people are. But if it's just stacks of business cards, that's not getting you anywhere because you can't do anything with that. It's hard to monetize that. Okay? That was really good stuff. Thank you so much for stopping by and being able to share some of this with us. For Amanda Baxley, my name is Brian Hilliard, saying so long, take care, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
See, wasn't that fun?
Yes, it was a lot less intimidating than I thought it was.
Oh.